What's your emergency?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the PIO podcast, a place to discuss all public information-related topics for police, fire, EMS, and local and federal government organizations.
It was a good learning experience for a lot of us that social media is not real life.
But we have to remember the media are very rarely a target audience. They're simply that conduit.
Our words have impacts on individuals, and it may not be positive. So just being thoughtful and mindful of the words that we speak.
I think what's so interesting about this position too, and this job and this profession, is that every one of us is looking for purpose, and when we find it here, that's it.
To know is that a crisis for one is not necessarily a crisis for another.
This episode is sponsored by the Social Media Strategy Summit, the leading provider of social media education. They host annual events designed specifically for government communications professionals like you to help you build and engage your communities through social media. Visit their website at socialmediastrategiessummit.com to learn more and use promo code PIO podcast for 10% off of your registration.
Good afternoon. Today on the PIO podcast, we have Bill Delaney. Bill is a retired PIO from Fairfax County Fire and Rescue. Bill, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So, Bill, let's talk about your background as a PIO and how you got into the profession.
Yeah, like most PIOs in public safety, I got in by accident, sort of. I was a career firefighter in Fairfax City and got injured, had knee surgery, and was out for a while and didn't want to just sit around and answer phones. So somehow I started doing stuff and was promoting the department and actually having live morning shows come out to the station and stuff like that. So it kind of got started that way. And then from there, I sort of did a few other things that led me to actually decide a little bit of a career shift. And I went to manage fire and injury prevention programs and be an assistant PI with Montgomery County Fire after that. So, and then eventually ended up in Fairfax where I stand today, but just totally an accident and just started doing things and one thing led to another and here I sit.
Okay, and let me ask you this, did the department prior to you doing the things that you were doing, did they have anything like that?
No, they did not. It's a very small department where I started off. They had no one even remotely doing it. So, along with some pub ed stuff as well. So it was totally new, and some good leadership at the time because they really allowed me to do it. I mean, most times you're on light duty, just hey, answer the phones and stay out of trouble, and rehab and get back.
Okay.
But they saw what I was doing and they just let me run with it. And then I'm grateful to them for letting me do that at the time.
Okay. So let's talk about detailed background in social media. You've got a lot of it. So what is your take on the current changes to Twitter and its paid tier system for business?
In some ways, it's not too far off from what other platforms have done or been doing as well. It's so unpredictable right now with the current, owner of Twitter, shall we say. The only predictable thing about him is he's unpredictable. But I would say that it's pretty standard kind of really. So, a lot of the platforms started off as free, but then there'd always be, they'd give you a little taste of it. And then eventually they'd say, so you like this? Hey, for a little bit extra money, and a lot of them are still doing that, we'll give you all this. We'll give you all the bells and whistles. So I think it's really not unusual at all at the end of the day. It'll be interesting to see what they do. They did hire a relatively new CEO I think I saw an interview with Elon Musk on CNBC last week. And so I think he's changing his tune on some things a little bit. So stay tuned, as far as that goes. And just like social media is ever changing, in general, I think that the Twitter is going to be one of these situations. I haven't seen much of a difference otherwise. As far as that, obviously, it's not impacting government agencies too much right now with the gray check. But again, that could change.
So let's talk about that gray check issue. Right now, that's where they're on for government agencies. It's free. Do you see that changing in the future? And if so, why?
Right now I don't, but again, I'll use something different. The owner is consistently inconsistent. So all bets are off with this. It's just something to continue to keep an eye on. Can it change? Sure, absolutely, it could change. But I think right now, just based on what I saw on CNBC, I think my sense was he was losing a lot of advertisers, thus losing money. And so I think he was starting to have a little bit of a shift in thought process. So again, stay tuned. I wish I had a better answer there, but it just really is unpredictable. And at the end of the day, because of and I have nothing against the guy. I don't know the guy at all either way. Just because of who is the majority owner of that company, it's just going to be that way.
So the critical role right now that Twitter really kind of blew up during the hurricane season several years ago, when, especially during Katrina, where it really got a lot of attention. Because it's got such a critical role now in incidents, whether they're man-made or natural disasters, what alternatives do police, fire, EMS have if they can't afford a budget if there becomes a fee structure?
Well, I think, and I can only speak to the market in the Washington, D.C. area as far as this answer goes, although my sense is, and being where I'm located now, it seems to be pretty similar in that I think first and foremost, and when I was with Fairfax County Fire Rescue, we did direct folks to the alert system that was there, run by the emergency management, where you get a text, email, etc. Real time, of course, there's iPause if things are really, really bad. So I think we should be pushing, if that's available in your community, pushing people to that for more emergent notices, because we're just not sometimes able to monitor that and get stuff out 24/7, depending on your staffing. The media does a pretty good job of amplifying the messages, though, too. So as far as media goes, to help get the message out, certainly, I know in the Washington, D.C. area, they have a pretty good presence on Instagram, and they follow the platforms of public safety and even a lot of the PIOs on these platforms as well. I would say that's sort of the backup plan. Get it out that way. And certainly Facebook. Actually, Facebook gets a bit of a knock a lot of times, but I don't know. I see both with Fairfax and now with the National Fallen Firefighters, there's a pretty good crowd and a pretty good cross-section of folks on Facebook even. And Facebook certainly has some algorithms that will certainly help promote any type of emergent message that needs to get out there as well. So just like even with Twitter here, the more information you can get out on different platforms, the better. Obviously, the way I used Twitter was get it out, but mainly to its media, because primarily politicians, media, even national, international media, certainly there's regular residents on it, but I find really Twitter that the primary audience are the media folks, reporters, and outlets.
I agree with you on that, definitely. There's a lot more Twitter users that are public figures, so to speak, as opposed to your general residents. And at Facebook, you tend to have that older demographic, which fits in with a lot of municipalities. So, yeah, I can see that. So,
yeah, and I might be in that demographic, within a few months. So,
too. So you certainly retired, and you just said it a minute ago. Now you're doing some work for the National Firefighters Foundation. Let's talk about the role that you have there, and what are you doing for the organization?
Yeah, I'm doing a lot of their social media. I'm officially a social media contractor. It's a part-time position, and just, they haven't, they've done a little bit of it. They had someone who did a fantastic job before me. It was awesome, but it was one of many other responsibilities she had. So, and there's one other person helping out on sort of a part-time basis. So really it's just kind of the overall strategy and getting content out there and making folks aware of different things and looking at different platforms. What happens if Twitter goes away? What's next, et cetera, some of the issues we've talked about. But I've also been many folks don't know that the Memorial Weekend moved this year from October to May. And we just had it a couple weeks ago. So I literally retired May 1st, and then the next weekend I was back up in the DC area going to Emmitsburg, Maryland, where I was in charge of the overall social media team. We had a few volunteers who I happen to know involved with just covering the overall memorial service and the Memorial Weekend, because there was a lot of stuff going on. So not only getting that out, but just highlighting the fact the foundation, when you hear National Fallen Firefighters Foundation, you just assume, okay, they help families of the fallen firefighters. And they have this big service every year and honor them, and then everything stops. And the fact is, they have an amazing amount of programs for the families. I mean, once you're with them, you're with them. It's their family. And so, mental health programs, camps for the kids, throughout however long they want to participate. It could be for just that time. It could be for years and years and years. And so
we're doing all kinds of services and programs for family members and those of in need people, I guess you would say.
Yeah. And also really the other thing people don't understand a lot of times is they're into prevention. They want to prevent firefighter deaths. And that's been the mandate since Chief Ron Sarnicki came in. And he's getting ready to retire here. He's made a huge footprint on the fire service, but just to take that from going from, again, not only honoring the fallen, but saying, hey, you know what? How about if we prevent firefighters from dying? And so there's a lot of that messaging that I'm trying to get out too, with programs available there as well.
And that's an area that law enforcement struggled in a long time, and the fire service really has rehab down very well. When you have a major incident, they're already setting up tents for rehab and recovery, and they have water set up. Cops go to a scene. We're out there. We could be out on a scene on a perimeter for 16 hours before we get relieved, and then it's just like, okay, get back in your car and go to patrol, or go back in the station. There's no decompress. There's no debrief about what you're doing. There's no check of vitals. And, let's face it, cops are not always, not always the best eaters of food. So that contributes to that stress as well.
You just opened the door for me with donut jokes and stuff like that, but I'll refrain. But seriously, you're absolutely right. I mean, one of my grandfathers was a police officer, but even fire and rescue folks too don't necessarily eat well sometimes, and that's a big push in the fire service lately with health and wellness and nutritionists. Fairfax County had a nutritionist, but I know in Fairfax County we're dragging the police along as well. It's a great relationship, and actually they have some which is great to see, because to your point, I mean, I've always respected and had a great relationship with police officers, and we had when I was with Fairfax County, great working relationship, and you guys, a lot of stress and strain and everything else. So good to see.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. All right, so Bill, let's talk about, because you have so much experience, can you provide some insight into the characteristics that put people in a good position to be a PIO?
Let's take a quick break.
I think it would be useful at least to experiment, and I know some universities have started to experiment with this, but experiment with having, a required course maybe for all students entering the university. They used to have a course at my university, which was like here's how to go to college class, here's how to study and things like that. They don't have that course anymore, but instead of having something like that, have a course that show students, here's the history of free speech, here's how it.
I think the thing that gets lost nowadays, is the whole texting and social media and everything, which obviously is critical. I mean, it's a critical skill for a PIO nowadays. But what gets lost is I tell people, and I told the person who's taking my place, the one big advice I gave him was, you got to shake hands and kiss babies. And so you really need to be a people person, not just focus on the social and the texting and stuff, but someone who can develop relationships with other people. There's got to be a level of patience. Sometimes a reporter, I'm sure sometimes a reporter will absolutely piss you off. And, but you have to maintain professional demeanor and be calm and not let it get to you. And someone with good ethics, because as you know, if you lie to a reporter and they find out, it's on. And everything else that happens is your fault. As I've told many a reporter, I won't lie to you, but you just need to know the right questions to ask me. So that's something you have to. That's the other thing too, is you have to look at things in such a different way. You have to look at, a lot of times, for example, we'll have folks send us photos and stuff of training exercises or other things, and it could look great on the surface, but you have to also have that ability to look at what's written, what's in the photo, what's going on. So it's sort of an analytical thing, because sometimes there's some things in there that, there's this great safety violation. There's, someone's phone number written on the back, on a whiteboard. So that, and just really, someone who's hard charging, who doesn't mind, hardworking. I mean, that may sound simplistic, but it's very important in all hours of the day. Again, public safety, the general nature is, 24-hour shifts for the fire service anyways, usually, being awake and available, that's always, at the right times. And again, patience and calm demeanor. Don't get rattled. Someone who's very calm there and is always looking and thinking ahead. It's not just focused on the immediacy of what's going on, but also obviously focus on that, but also trying to position things and being able to look further down the road, especially if this is turning into somewhat of a long-term event, whether it be hours or days. Especially true, police PIO is just, and especially a lot of what's going on this year with all the mass shootings. I mean, some incredible work by them where they really have to be thinking 6 steps ahead, and position things early on so that they're in a position to get the folks the media what they want, and to understand the media, is actually an ally of yours. It's or can be. I mean, they're definitely a partner. They don't have to be your best friend, but they're a partner in what you want to get out. Being able to develop those relationships is huge, because sometimes there's not so good stories, and they can either, if you don't have the proper demeanor and are always in a bad mood and treating people poorly, they're not going to call you. They'll just go with whatever story or information they've been fed. Whereas if you have those relationships, they'll call you first. Hey, we heard from one of your firefighters that da 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 da. What do you have to say about it? And then you can go from there. But also being timely and understanding there's deadlines, and you have to address those deadlines and be cognizant of those deadlines, and just being somewhat moderately well organized as best you can. Those are just a few.
Here's an interesting one. I had a mayor in a municipality I worked at many years ago, and we were in this meeting, and there was this controversy that came up, and one of the comms people from the city says, "Mr. Mayor, you have to give a comment. You got to talk to the media." And his comment was, "You know how I handle the media? I just don't call them back. I don't answer the phone." And
right.
You do a big negative to yourself that way, and I think you allow them to take control of the narrative. And like you said earlier, they're our partners, and they're a conduit for our message to get out. And if we don't take the time to say our side, we're definitely going to run into some trouble.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I've been in that and situation before, and sometimes, unfortunately, lawyers get involved too, and they tend to be not too transparent, and that's just deadly. I tell folks, there's no such thing as no comment, because once you do that, you are in deep trouble. But that's the other thing too. You really, in the fires, well, and I'm sure it's in police department too, that you need to also have the ability to really tell people what they don't want to hear and give advice, even though it's the chief of the department. You need to say, Chief, this is not a good idea. And you need to be able to have the fortitude to do that and to advise and not worry about if you're uniform PIO in either service. That's where I see a lot of issues a lot of times is usually in the fire service, it's a captain or below. And they're very hesitant to, well, the chief said this, we got to do it. Well, did you tell the chief, X, Y, and Z is going to happen? No, this is what the chief wants. So, but, unfortunately in Fairfax, we eventually went to, just two civilians in charge, but one obviously with extensive fire service experience.
Okay, so Bill, there's been a lot of stuff in the news lately about artificial intelligence technology that's out there with the BARD and ChatGPT and all the other ones that are out there. There's a lot of concern on how this might impact the public information officer profession. What are your thoughts about AI in our field?
Well, first, I wish I knew a little bit more about it because I've been so busy retiring that because it's been a gradual handoff, which has been great. But that's another story for another day, how to transition appropriately. But so I haven't read up on it or been involved or tried it, more importantly, as much as I would like. But I would say this: it's like anything new. I tend to be someone who likes to charge ahead and try new things and do it. But sometimes too, just kind of stopping for a moment, taking a deep breath, and really looking at the big picture. For example, just the other day it came out, and here's the danger of AI. Everything I'd always read about AI, it's going to be great because it'll take stuff from the internet and it'll be accurate. It should be fairly accurate, blah, blah, blah. Well, there's now a lawyer in really big trouble in New York, the Manhattan district, because a gentleman was suing an airline for an injury sustained on a flight. And so in doing his research, the lawyer for the defendant used AI, exclusively AI. Didn't do his research, didn't do his background, didn't check anything, turns in this brief because the airline was saying, hey, you need to dismiss this because of X, Y, and Z. And basically, this guy turns in what the AI generated, which started listing these cases, these court cases, as precedents. Well, when the judge and the attorneys for the airline started reading them, they found no such thing as those court cases. They were totally fabricated by the platform. And this guy, again, did not do his homework. And I can tell you that excuse ain't going over well with the judge. And this lawyer's in serious trouble. And I think he goes before the court on this here maybe early next week. But it's on the New York Times. It's in a couple other places if people are interested in looking at it. It's a fascinating case. But my point is, be careful. I mean, it's not perfected yet. I do think there are some positives, potential positives, that will help streamline and assist PIOs in what they do. But boy, oh boy, if you're trying it, especially early on here, you better be really looking at what is being produced and what is being said. Because I can think of all sorts of nasty scenarios. If you use a certain word or something and AI decides you really mean this, when you really meant that, and if you're not looking,
that lawyer was probably using it as a way to cut a corner to write a brief because maybe didn't have time or who knows. But he figured, oh, let's use this and see how it comes out. And then the sad thing is he doesn't verify any of the information that's in there. I think that's probably the bigger dereliction there.
Big time. And like I said, he's in trouble. So, it's not going to be, oh, hey, we understand you used AI. Oh, well, bad mistake. No. That's not what's going on here.
Legal document.
Yeah.
All right, so Bill, where do you see the next evolution of public information going? Where do you see it going from here?
Well, I think it's already sort of there. It depends on where you are, but I know, for years now, I've always said the PIO is going to become the reporter. And in a lot of ways, that's already going on mostly. And in the Washington, D.C. market, for example, what I was seeing a lot more of is one reporter or one camera crew shows up because the media, and this does go beyond the DC market, is cutting and streamlining big time. And so they don't have the same resources they had. And so if you're not producing video, your own videos, your own content, whether it be written or photos or videos, whatever, shows, on-scene reports, then you may be left out of the news, because a lot of times what they're doing is they're not sent when they, on instance, they're not necessarily sending anyone unless it's really, really big. And they're relying on the departments to provide the videos, the verbiage, all the time on all the major publications and the channels, news channels and stuff. They would literally take the tweets from Fairfax County Fire and any video content we were putting out, and they credited the department. I mean, there was no problem. We had a working great relationship again, and said, please use it, just credit us, and you'd see it on the morning news, courtesy of that Fairfax Fire Rescue. Video from the scene of the house fire the night before, or the day or the evening before, or photos from it. And again, they would sort of try to craft their own article to go along with it, but it was absolutely taken from the various tweets and stuff. So you're going to have a, basically, departments need to be hiring what I call future-proof employees. And that is with the PIO, you have someone who's going to need to know coding a little bit. I do, and video editing and stuff like that, which I've taught myself totally. So a PIO is going to have to show up being able to do everything. Taking the video, editing the video, getting interviews, writing stories, producing stories, et cetera, just like when I went ADD on you, what I was getting ready to say about the reporters is that's what's going on with the reporters, at least in the DC market, where a reporter shows up, but they're the camera person, they're the reporter, they're the video editor, they're the story writer, they're doing it all. And so that's really where it is currently going, and where it is ultimately going to hopefully get to. Hopefully everyone, whether they be police, fire, you understand they need to get there. And but we do still have government agencies that advertise, hey, clip out, as part of the PIO function, clip out the newspaper clippings and make a scrapbook. Well, that's wonderful. If you hire that person, be ready to be stuck, 20, 25 plus years with someone who can't really function.
Interesting. Thank you, Bill. Is there a question I should have asked? And if so, what would you have answered it with?
Well, I think the one thing in the recent article you wrote on LinkedIn, I saw that was good, just sort of warning about misinformation in general, which was good and appropriate. And I certainly recommend anyone read it. And it's a great, easy read. It's short to the point and get you where you need to be. The one thing I would add to that is the misinformation that is coming from internal sources. And this was especially true during the pandemic and the last election, frankly. So I think something, PIOs are going to be asked to do more and more, as well as in Fairfax, we're being asked more and more to do internal communications. and not monitor social media. There's other folks that do that in another department, but just again, you see different things that people are putting out there, and they're sharing what appear to be harmless to some extent from some very bad actors, and they're not paying attention to where they're sharing it from. For example, I saw someone who had shared a post that was innocent enough, but it was really trying to direct people to a website. He just liked the message politically, but it was very nothing that would get this person in trouble. But when I just out of curiosity, I started doing check on where this was coming from, and it was coming from an extremist organization that definitely promotes violence and right-wing extremism that's in the news, but and this person was the furthest thing from fitting that bill, and this person had zero idea. But the goal was just to get that person to really go to their website to click, because they are making some money off every click. Right. So not only are you sharing a message coming from this site, but you're in theory helping to fund them. And I'm waiting for more and more public safety people to get in trouble because, just like the lawyer with the AI thing, not doing the research, they just see a message and they share it. Another instance was, someone shared something from a major news channel. So, okay, this must be reliable, but they're sharing it from a platform from a gentleman based out of Canada who said 9/11 was a hoax perpetrated by the CIA, known Russian agent. There's no political thing here. It's just this guy was known and is known in Canada. He operates out of Canada. So again, it was some message this person liked, but he wasn't paying attention to who was sharing it. And so I think more and more, and just getting out misinformation there, people are latching on, and there are a lot of bad actors out there that both internally and unfortunately externally that love the disruption for a variety of reasons. Countries that are enemies because they want to create chaos, and there are people here who make money off of it. And so they're going to say whatever and do whatever so they can continue making money. So yeah, that's one thing I think PIOs need to be sort of aware of too, is you could have sort of your own people subverting the message. So you need to sort of pay attention to what's going on there and educate them. We always talk to every new recruit class that came in. And I would suggest to any PIO, whether it be police or fire, get integrated to any officer development academies that might be a part of a police. A lot of police and fire departments do, so that you're able to get FaceTime with all these folks and go visit fire stations and police stations and talk to the people. And that's what we were doing in Fairfax County as well. We were very accessible and out there.
Excellent. All right. So we're going to lighten it up a little bit. We're going to go to some rapid fire questions. You ready?
Yep.
Right. Texting or talking?
Texting.
Coffee or tea?
Only because of what people... What's that?
Go ahead. Only because...
I was just going to say, I have to, because people would say, well, you said earlier, it's because most of the reporters and everyone else I deal with text.
Okay.
So that's why texting.
Coffee or tea?
No question, coffee.
Adult drink of choice?
Beer.
Do you have a hobby?
Watching my grandson play hockey.
Hockey, yeah, awesome. What is one thing you regret spending money on?
Certain furnitures, but I blame my wife. She made me do it.
There you go. And you can't go wrong with that because it's furniture. So,
Yep.
What movie or TV show changed your life?
Emergency.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I remember.
Yep.
Many of these youngsters won't remember that show, but I do remember that show quite a bit.
Yeah. Matter of fact, the guy who played the captain just died, and the outpouring. I did something on the fallen firefighter side, just as a side. I'm kind of straining on you, but the outpouring from people because it did inspire a generation. I kind of called him the captain of a generation. We viewed him as our captain, and I hope his family sees it. I'm going to try to pass along, but I don't know if he understood or his family understood just the impact. I mean, you go to, it's just incredible.
I agree with you because I remember every show. Ask permission for beg forgiveness.
Beg forgiveness.
For PIO. What world record? What world record do you think you'd have a chance of breaking?
Buying coffee at Starbucks most consecutive days in a row.
There you go. And what do you think people misunderstand about you?
That I am a IT and social media wizard.
Are you a thinker or a doer?
Just not true.
There you go.
Both.
Okay. Bill.
Yeah, you have to be. As a PO, I think you have to be.
I agree with you 100%. Final thoughts, Bill. What key points would you like listeners to take away from the interview?
Key things. I would just say, again, you still, kind of what I alluded to earlier, you still need to have that personal touch, go to the fire stations if you're a fire PIO, or ride with a police officer if you're, and go to the police stations if you're police, and develop those relationships, because it's amazing the intel, if you will, and what you're hearing is going on, especially if you're in a larger department, but it can go for a small one too. The more relationships you build, and they'll send you like photos you can use or videos, but they'll get you information, they'll give you good intel, and that's just so critical. Is don't forget that. Don't just caught up in, like I said with texting. Yeah, a lot of the reporters, pretty much all of them, and others do like to text, but you still have that ability to get out there and shake hands and kiss babies.
Okay. Anything you'd like to add?
No, just have fun. I guess just have fun. It flies by, before you know it. And I was a little over 40 years in the fire service, so it's been great. And, fortunately, I'm in a role I'll be able to still help out a bit, but just enjoy what you do, have a good time, and you can have fun as a PIO. Sometimes it's not too fun, as you know, but have fun with it and just enjoy it and enjoy the people. That's the cool part. That's what I miss, are the people.
I agree with you. All right, Bill, so how can people best reach out if they want to connect or follow up with anything they heard?
Yeah, absolutely welcome to. You can email me at M as in Mary, PS as in Sam, Fire, all one word, mpsfire@aol.com. I'm on Twitter. You can DM me there at Bill Delaney, Delaney, all one word. And Instagram, it's Bill Delaney, and I probably need to shorten it now, although I do put the caveat on my bio that I'm retired, but Bill Delaney, FXCOFD.
Okay.
So short for Fairfax County Fire Department.
Show notes. People will be able to find the links there.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Yeah.
Bill, thank you very much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Hearing a perspective from someone that's been through the field, started up in it so early, didn't get into it really because that was what they were going into. It just kind of like evolved. So that's awesome. Thank you very much for what you do and continue to do for the National Fallen Firefighters Association.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. Enjoyed it.
Have a good night.
You too.
That's all for this week. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Another huge thank you to the Social Media Strategies Summit for being a sponsor of the PIO podcast. Join their First Responders Summit this April or their Government Summit this May. Learn more about confirmed speakers and programming at socialmediastrategiessummit.com and use promo code PIO podcast for 10% off of your registration.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast to get notified of the latest episode. If you are listening on a platform that allows reviews, please give us a review. We appreciate any review, good or bad. It helps us improve on each episode. Until next time, be safe.